Disclaimer: this story explores mature emotional themes involving family dynamics and adult relationships. It contains no explicit material but may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. I never thought I'd be telling this story, definitely not on the internet. But once you hear what happened, you'll understand why I can't keep it to myself. It started on a quiet Friday night, the kind that used to mean pizza, movies, and maybe a glass of wine once the kids were asleep. My husband, Alex, was out of town on a work trip, and I was home with his son, Tyler, my 17-year-old stepson. We get along fine. Better than most step-parents, I think. He's polite, funny in that dry, sarcastic way, and he keeps to himself unless he has something to say, which isn't often. But that night, he said something I still can't shake. It was subtle, almost tossed out like a passing thought. But it landed with a weight I'm still carrying. I should back up a bit. Alex and I have been married for 3 years. I met him when Tyler was in middle school, and while I'm not his mom, I've been around long enough to know his routines, how he zones out with headphones, how he picks at food when something's bothering him, how his mood shifts when his mom cancels plans last minute, which, unfortunately, is often. So when he asked if he could crash at our place for the weekend instead of staying with her, it didn't seem unusual. I said yes, of course. I didn't think twice. I picked up his favorite snacks and we planned a low-key movie night, just the two of us, couch cushions thrown on the floor, a stack of old horror movies queued up. It felt normal. Familiar, even. We watched 2 movies, half-watched a third. He made jokes during the jump scares, and I caught myself laughing more than I had all week. Somewhere around midnight, he started drifting off, head leaning against the back of the couch. I got up, brought him a blanket, and was about to head upstairs when he spoke. He didn't look at me when he said it. Eyes half closed, voice low, almost like he was dreaming. But he said, "You're the only one who ever makes it feel like home." I froze. At first, I didn't know if I'd heard him right. Maybe I misread it. Maybe he didn't mean it that way. But then he looked up at me just for a second and I saw it in his eyes. Something raw. Something that felt bigger than a tired compliment. I told myself it was sweet. That he was just emotional. That being a teenager with divorced parents is rough, and he was simply grateful. But the next morning, the way he acted, the things he didn't say, told a different story. And now, 3 weeks later, I still haven't told Alex what his son said that night. Because I'm not sure how he'd take it. Because part of me wonders if there was more behind those words than I was ready to hear. And part of me is scared I didn't imagine it. Whatever that moment meant, it changed the way I see him. The way I see myself. And if you think that's where the story ends, it doesn't. That night was just the beginning. The morning after that strange night, Tyler barely said a word. He came into the kitchen, hair a mess, hoodie sleeves pulled over his hands. He mumbled a quiet morning, grabbed a granola bar, and scrolled aimlessly on his phone while I made coffee. Everything looked normal, but it didn't feel normal. That one sentence from the night before kept playing in my head, "You're the only one who ever makes it feel like home." I kept telling myself it was innocent, that it came from a place of vulnerability. But it stuck with me in a way I couldn't ignore. I watched him from across the counter, trying to read his mood. But Tyler, like his dad, was hard to read when he wanted to be. Still, I noticed things, how he didn't meet my eyes, how he left the room before I could ask how he slept. It wasn't rudeness. It was something else. Distance? Embarrassment? Regret? I didn't know. But I knew something had shifted. That afternoon, I called Alex just to hear his voice. He was still in Chicago, stuck in back-to-back meetings, and I didn't mention anything about what had happened. I told him Tyler was fine. That everything was fine. Lying came easier than I expected. After we hung up, I sat on the couch staring at nothing, trying to unpack why this bothered me so much. I'd always tried to give Tyler space, to respect the blurred lines of being a step-parent. I wasn't trying to replace his mother. I just wanted him to feel safe here, seen. But maybe I had crossed some invisible boundary, one I didn't even know existed. Later that night, I found him outside on the porch. He was sitting on the steps, hoodie up, hood casting a shadow across his face. I hesitated, then stepped out with a blanket and sat beside him. We didn't say anything for a while. The air between us was thick, not uncomfortable, but full of things unsaid. Finally, I spoke. "Hey, about what you said last night." He didn't turn to look at me. Just shrugged and said, "I don't remember what I said." I didn't believe him. Still, I let it go. "Okay." More silence. Then, softly, "I didn't mean anything weird by it." I nodded. "I know. But did I?" The way he said it, quiet, cautious, like he didn't trust himself, made me wonder. He pulled his knees in closer, picking at the edge of his sleeve. It's different here. With you. It's not fake. It's not like I have to pretend all the time." That part hit me harder than I expected. I'd never asked him to pretend. But maybe other people had. I wanted to say something reassuring, something comforting, but the words stuck. I was afraid of making it worse. Afraid of reading too much into what could just be a teenager trying to express something he didn't fully understand himself. But inside, I could feel a storm brewing, questions I wasn't sure I wanted the answers to. Was he just confiding in me, or did he feel something more? Was I imagining this entire thing? Or was there something beneath the surface we were both avoiding? And what would happen when Alex came home? That night, Tyler went to bed early. I stayed up late, pretending to watch TV but really just staring at the black screen, heart racing. I kept thinking about what could unravel if this went the wrong way. One sentence, said half asleep, had changed everything. And the scariest part? I wasn't sure if I wanted things to go back to the way they were. By the time Alex got home Sunday night, the atmosphere in the house had already shifted into something I couldn't name. Tyler had barely come out of his room that day, only showing his face to grab snacks and mumble that he wasn't hungry for dinner. When he heard the garage door open, he didn't rush to greet his dad. That wasn't like him. Alex dropped his bags in the kitchen and gave me a kiss on the cheek. "Everything good?" I smiled. Lied again. "Yeah, all fine." But everything in me was buzzing. Later that evening, while Tyler was supposedly in the shower, I sat across from Alex on the couch. We were catching up, but I was barely listening. I was too distracted, too aware of the closed bathroom door upstairs and the fact that it had been running way longer than usual. Alex was talking about some coworker drama when I finally blurted it out. "Have you noticed anything off with Tyler lately?" He blinked. "Off how?" I hesitated, careful with my words. "Just quiet. Detached. Like he's holding something in." Alex sighed. "That's pretty much his baseline." "But it's different now," I said, trying not to sound too insistent. "Like he's pulling away." Alex looked at me a beat too long before replying. "He's a teenager. He's going through stuff. Just give him space." I nodded, but I knew what I wasn't saying. I knew why it felt different. Later that night, after Alex went to bed, I passed by Tyler's room. His door was slightly open. I tapped gently and peeked in. He was sitting at his desk, headphones around his neck, sketchbook open. I hadn't known he liked to draw. "What's that?" I asked. He startled slightly, then closed the book quickly. "Nothing. Just bored." "Can I see?" He hesitated, then handed it to me without a word. The drawing on the page stopped me cold. It was a living room scene. Ours. Down to the lamp placement, the couch cushions, even the folded throw blanket I always leave on the armrest. In the drawing, there were two figures, one asleep on the couch. The other, me, was standing behind him, watching. It was intimate, specific, like he'd been replaying that moment over and over, just like I had. I handed it back. "You're really talented." He didn't say anything, just stared at me with this quiet, pleading look that made my chest tighten. I wanted to ask what he was feeling. I wanted him to say something, to clarify or deny or anything, but instead, he just said, "It's easier to draw than talk." I nodded, then left the room, heart pounding. The next day, I got a text from Tyler's mom. She wanted to talk. Said Tyler had been off the last few weekends and asked if I'd noticed anything. I told her he seemed fine, which, by now, was the third lie I'd told in 2 days. That night at dinner, Tyler barely touched his food. Alex didn't seem to notice, caught up in a story from work. I watched Tyler push peas around his plate, his eyes distant, like he was somewhere else entirely. I started to wonder if this wasn't just about me. Maybe something else was going on, something he hadn't told anyone. Something darker. But I was in too deep to ask now without unraveling everything. And the worst part? A part of me didn't want to know what the truth was. Not yet. The house was too quiet. It had been days since Tyler's drawing, days of pretending I hadn't seen it, hadn't noticed how detailed it was, how focused it had been on me. I hadn't told Alex, hadn't told anyone. I couldn't. I kept hoping things would level out, that maybe I was overreacting. But every time I looked at Tyler, I felt it, that tension, just under the surface, waiting to break. Friday night came again. Alex was running late from work. Tyler and I were alone in the house. Again. We barely spoke during dinner. I cleared the dishes while he disappeared upstairs. I told myself to relax, that it was fine, that nothing would happen. I was halfway through folding laundry when I realized I hadn't heard any noise upstairs in over an hour. No music, no footsteps, just silence. I went up, paused outside his door, and knocked. No answer. Tyler. Still nothing. I pushed the door open gently. His room was empty. Then I heard the soft creak of the attic stairs. We never used the attic. It was mostly storage, barely finished. Just insulation, boxes, and a single bulb. My chest tightened. I climbed the stairs slowly, my heart hammering in my ears. When I reached the top, he was sitting there alone in the dim light, knees pulled up to his chest. His sketchbook was open beside him. I exhaled. "What are you doing up here?" He didn't look at me. "It's quiet." "You scared me," I said, stepping closer. "You okay?" He nodded, but I didn't believe it. Then, finally, he spoke. "I feel like I don't belong anywhere." His voice cracked on the last word. It hit harder than I expected. "You do here," I said. "You always have." He looked up at me then, eyes red-rimmed, but dry. "Do I?" "Yes," I said, too quickly. "Tyler, what's going on?" There was a pause, long, heavy, like he was debating whether to speak at all. Then he said it. "You're the only person who's ever really seen me. And I don't know what to do with that." The attic felt suddenly smaller. I could barely breathe. "Tyler, I know it's wrong," he said, cutting me off. "I'm not stupid. I don't know where else to put it. I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. But I had to say it. I needed you to know." His words came out fast, scared but controlled, like he'd been holding them in for too long. I stood there frozen, unsure what to do, say something that would crush him or say nothing and let it hang. Finally, I sat down a few feet away from him. Not close. Not far. "I care about you, Tyler," I said slowly. "More than you probably know. But it can't be what you think it is. I'm not the right person for that kind of attention." He nodded, looking down at the floor, hands shaking slightly. "I know," he whispered. We sat in silence for what felt like forever. Then I heard the front door open downstairs. Alex was home. Tyler stood up quickly, wiped his hands on his jeans, and brushed past me without another word. And I just sat there, heart pounding, knowing nothing would ever be the same again. I didn't sleep that night. After the attic, after what Tyler said, I stayed awake replaying every interaction we'd had over the last year, every long look, every quiet moment that now felt like a breadcrumb. I wasn't imagining it. I knew that now. But what I didn't know was how to move forward. And what terrified me more was the feeling that Tyler had only scratched the surface of what he was holding in. By morning, things had returned to normal. Alex was making coffee, Tyler was back to his quiet, avoidant self, and no one said a word about the attic. But something had shifted in me. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I told Alex I needed to get out of the house and took a drive to clear my head. I ended up at a small park nearby, somewhere I used to go when Alex and I first started dating. It was quiet, safe. I sat on a bench, trying to figure out what to do, how to protect Tyler, protect our family, but still be honest. Then my phone buzzed. It was from a number I didn't recognize. You don't know me, but I'm Tyler's old therapist. I've been trying to reach his dad for over a year. I thought you should know what's really been going on. I stared at the message, my stomach dropping. I called the number. A woman picked up. Her voice was calm but serious. She told me she'd worked with Tyler when he was 15, just before I married Alex. She hadn't seen him since, but had tried multiple times to get Alex to bring him back after some red flags came up. Emotional boundaries, she said. Unusual attachments. Deep abandonment fears. I asked her what she meant by unusual attachments, already dreading the answer. He developed strong, idealized fixations, she said, toward women who showed him care. But the patterns were rooted in trauma, specifically around his parents' divorce. And something else. Something else? She paused. There was an incident with his mother's ex-boyfriend. Tyler never fully opened up, but there were signs of emotional manipulation, maybe worse. He shut down afterward. Stopped trusting adults. That's when the fixation behavior started. I couldn't breathe. I ended the call and sat there frozen. Alex had never told me any of this. Not about therapy. Not about the trauma. Not about what his son might be carrying deep down. And now it all made sense. The withdrawal, the drawing, the emotional weight behind that one sentence. You're the only one who ever makes it feel like home. I had become his safe place. Maybe the only one he'd ever had. But Alex had known. And he didn't say a word. By the time I pulled back into the driveway, my hands were shaking. Tyler wasn't the only one keeping secrets. When I walked inside, Alex was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling on his phone like nothing was wrong. I stood there in the doorway, heart pounding. I need to ask you something, I said. He looked up. Yeah? Why didn't you tell me about Tyler's past? His face went blank. And in that 1 second, I knew he wasn't surprised by the question. He'd been waiting for it. And now everything was unraveling. Alex didn't say anything at first. Just sat there, motionless, phone still in his hand like he hadn't heard me right. But I wasn't backing down. Tyler's therapist called me. She said you knew. About the past. About how he gets attached. My voice was steady, but inside I was shaking. He finally looked up. I didn't think it mattered anymore. Didn't think it, Alex, he's not okay. And you knew he wasn't. You left me alone with him, knowing what he was carrying. He's a kid, not a threat, he snapped, his voice louder now. He's confused, not dangerous. That's not the point, I said. You should have told me. I could have helped him better. I could have protected him, or us, from this getting too far. He stood up, pacing now. I thought if we gave him stability, he'd grow out of it. I didn't want you to treat him like he was broken. But he is broken, Alex. And now? So are we. We didn't speak after that. Not for hours. Not until I knocked on Tyler's door later that night. He opened it slowly, eyes guarded. I stepped in, sat on the edge of his bed. I talked to your therapist, I said quietly. I know some of what you've been through. He didn't speak. Just looked down at his hands. I'm not mad at you, I continued. You didn't do anything wrong. You were just looking for something safe. And I want to be that for you, but the right way. He swallowed hard, jaw clenched. You hate me now. I shook my head. Not even close. But we can't keep pretending nothing happened. You need real help. Not just a place to hide. He nodded, but tears welled in his eyes. What if I lose you? I felt that like a punch to the chest. You're not losing me. But things are going to change. They have to. That weekend, Tyler moved in with his mother temporarily. It wasn't ideal, her place was chaotic, and their relationship had always been shaky, but he needed space. We all did. Alex and I barely spoke for a few days. When we finally sat down to talk, it was quiet, measured. "I should have told you everything," he said. "I thought I was protecting him. Maybe even protecting you." "I think you were protecting yourself," I replied. He nodded. "Probably." We weren't yelling anymore. We weren't even angry. Just tired. Tyler started therapy again the following week. This time, consistently. His new therapist was aware of everything, and I stayed involved, but with distance. I wanted to be supportive without being his lifeline. A few weeks later, I got a letter from him. A real letter. Not a text. Just a folded piece of notebook paper in the mailbox. It said, "I'm sorry for putting that on you. I didn't know where else to go with what I felt. I still don't. But I want to get better. I hope you're still in my life when I do." I cried when I read it. Not because it hurt, but because it gave me hope. He was trying. We all were. Some stories don't end clean. Some don't end at all. They just shift quietly, painfully, but towards something better. And while I'll never forget what Tyler said that night, I'll also never forget what he did afterward. He chose to heal. And so did I. Life didn't snap back into place. There wasn't some big moment where everything clicked and everyone was fine. But slowly, things got better. Tyler stayed with his mom for a few months. It was hard at first. He kept things distant, even from her, but therapy helped. He had a space to work through things without feeling like he was burdening anyone, especially me. Alex and I also started couples counseling. We had to. That trust break, the one where he kept Tyler's past from me, wasn't something I could ignore. But he owned it. He didn't try to excuse it. And that mattered more than I expected. We learned to talk again. Not just about what happened, but about how we'd both avoided hard truths to protect what we thought was normal. The irony is, it's the hard truths that made us stronger. Tyler began texting me again. Not often, but when it mattered. Updates from therapy, questions about his favorite dinners, a random picture of a squirrel he thought I'd laugh at. They meant the world. It showed me he was trying. That he still saw me as part of his life, just in a new way. Eventually, he came back to stay a few weekends. It was different, healthier. He had better boundaries. So did I. We didn't dance around things anymore. We acknowledged them. And that made all the difference. The last time he stayed over, he asked if he could show me one of his new drawings. It was a sketch of 3 people sitting around a dinner table, his mom, his dad, and me. We were all smiling. It wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. "I know it's just a picture," he said, "but I think this is what I want now. Just peace." I looked at him, really looked at him, and said, "Me too." And I meant it. This whole story started with one sentence I couldn't forget. But in the end, what I will remember is what came after: the work, the honesty, the choice to heal instead of hide. Not every family looks like the one you expect. Sometimes love is complicated. Sometimes it's about letting go of what you wanted something to be and embracing what it actually is. Tyler wasn't just a confused kid. He was a young man who had been hurt deeply and wanted to be seen. And I wasn't just a step-parent. I became a steady presence, imperfect, but real. We're not a traditional family, but we're ours. And that's enough. Did you enjoy the story? What part resonated most with you? Drop a comment below. What kind of stories would you like to hear next? More emotional family dynamics? Maybe suspense with a twist? Let us know, we're listening.